today I'm going to discuss building up a spares kit for a Jeep Cherokee XJ or Comanche MJ. These two vehicles are very similar. I happen to have one of each, so this kit is designed to go into either of those vehicles without having anything changed in the contents. I tried to keep this kit as compact and neat as was possible, given what I intended to be able to do. Therefore, it is 3 knockoff Pelican cases and 1 small Rubbermaid tub. So up first is the case labeled small parts. First I'll talk about the case itself. These are knockoff Pelican cases. I bought them from Princess Auto. It's a place very much like Harbor Freight, but we have them in Canada. They're good bang for the buck. For much less the cost of a real Pelican case, I can get these, and they're just about as good. And they're going to be good enough for what I'm doing. What is important about them is that they have a good seal in the lid, and they have decent latches, so they will keep the contents dry. You know that you're going to submerge your vehicle or leave these out in the rain or do something else stupid, so you want to keep this stuff dry so it actually does work when you need it. The contents of the case have also been packed tightly to try and prevent it from moving. A lot of things are in plastic bags. It gives them just a little bit more cushion. And other things are kept in containers like Plano boxes or Tupperware containers, as that again helps. In here firstly there's a Tupperware container that contains a lot of the engine sensors. I'll talk about it later. There's also a good selection of zip ties. These are the nylon types with the stainless steel insert. You can fix a lot of things with them, and buying the good ones is worth it for this. These are 2 or 3 times stronger than the cheap plastic only ones. I highly recommend you spend a few extra bucks and get these. They will go a lot further than the cheap ones. There's 2 serpentine belts. Unfortunately, my 2 Jeeps run different belts. At some point I will probably change this so that they're both the same belt, but for now they're different, so I live with it. I carry both. I don't want to take stuff in and out. I want to just have the kit set up. Otherwise you're going to forget the right belt or whatever, and you're going to need it. There's also an idler pulley. I've had a lot of troubles with these in the past. They tend to seize the bearing, and then the belt will break, and you will not have a water pump or an alternator then. You will not be able to limp the vehicle home in that state. So this is just a junkyard one. It'll get you home. Single Spicer 1310 U-joint. Don't really intend to change it, but that is for the drive shafts. They are kind of the easier one to do. If you keep your stuff in good shape, it's unlikely that a vehicle that are built to the level that I have will actually break a U-joint, but they might. And it's small, so I carry one. There's a couple of rolls of electrical tape. This is the Scotch 3M stuff. Again, buy the good stuff. You want it to actually work when you need it. And for the few dollar difference, this stuff works a hell of a lot better than the cheap tape. There's a roll of aviation lock wire. This is stainless steel wire. It's much like baling wire. This is actually for safety and fasteners, but anybody that's spent time around aircraft knows that it gets used for all sorts of things that it's not supposed to. I use this because I have it and I like it, but certainly if I didn't have access to this, I would just put regular baling wire in it and I would have a fair amount of it because it will solve a lot of problems. There's also a small Plano tackle box container. In here there's an assortment of stainless steel hose clamps. You can use those to do a lot of things. Fixing hoses is the obvious thing, but you can also use them to hook things back together and stuff like that. There's a little assortment of hardware. I don't carry a lot. You don't normally have the right stuff, but some nuts, some sheet metal screws, washers, just enough to kind of bojang things. There's some cable clamps. They're good for sticking things back together too, much like hose clamps. You can fix a throttle cable with a small one if you need to, hopefully. There's also a little assortment of electrical items in here. Good selection of fuses. I don't actually use all the sizes of fuses that are in here in my vehicles, but they're small and somebody else might need them. I'm more than willing to lend my stuff out if it comes down to that. There's a good selection of butt splices. Butt splices are great for fixing things temporarily. They're not great for permanent installations, but this is just about getting home, so those work great. Ring terminals, spade terminals, push connect, stuff like that. Again, just stuff to get you home. 3-position switch that's rated for a good amount of amperage. You can use that to fix a lot of things that, because it's not just that the switch isn't working. If you just can't figure out why the circuit isn't working, you can throw that in. Not about doing things proper and just making it work so you can get home. Now for the Tupperware container that contains mostly the engine sensors and a few other small things. Like I said, this is packed extremely tight, so it's been labeled clearly what's in there, so there's no point opening this up if it's not on the list. I'll take everything out and then I'll discuss it. So what I pulled out first was a pile of rags. I just used them to take up some of the void space. When you're fixing stuff, you always need rags anyways, so might as well have a few in there to use. What's actually in here that is of value is this is a coil and ICM combination. ICM failures are rare, coils do go every now and then. I have a whole unit that is knowing good off another Jeep. So that's in there, it's wrapped in a rag to keep it protected. There is a crank position sensor that is new in the bag, right there. Personally, I wouldn't recommend that brand, but I had it, so in it went. There's a map sensor that comes complete with the bracket and the hose. The hose gives you as much trouble as the sensor actually does. So if you're running into strange running issues, a lot of time it is the map sensor on these Renix Jeeps. So that's an important thing to have. There's also a new one, just in case. There's a throttle position sensor, TPS. This is a automatic version. The automatic version works on both the automatic or the manual, and it's cheaper. Always buy the automatic version. There is a IAC. Very, very rarely do those fail. There's one there just in case. There's a fuel filter here. There's also a fuel pump strainer or sock assembly. If you change the fuel pump, you're always supposed to change those, and if you do have contamination, it's a good idea to change that. Along with that, there is a fuel pump parts kit, as I call it. This is the lock ring, O-rings, hoses, clamps, everything for when you change a fuel pump. There's a fuel pump in my other kit, and that's why. You need this stuff if you do it. It's unlikely that the stuff that's in there is going to be salvageable, so save yourself some trouble and have that. There's a ballast resistor for the fuel pump. You can just bypass this if it fails, but it's small. I had one, so it went. There's a small bag with a few Bosch relays in it. These run various things. B plus latch, O2 sensor, fuel pump. One of them fails. Yeah, they're small. Good to have. There's a coil of wire. It's long enough to reach from one end of the Jeep to the other. So in the event that you have a problem where you just really can't figure it out, you can pull a whole new wire. The example of that would be like the fuel pump would be the big one. If you can't figure out why, whether it's the relay, the ballast resistor, or what is stopping it from actually working, at the very least you can pull a whole wire to it and have it on a switch. At least it'll get you home. There's a roll of duct tape as well. We all know duct tape fixes everything. It just happened to fit in there, so that's where it wound up. There is a couple spare plug wires. I don't really foresee a scenario where you need more than 2 plug wires. This is number 1 and number 6, the long ones, so they'll fit anywhere. There's also a Sharpie. Doesn't seem like it's got a lot of value, but it does. If you are trying to figure out a wiring problem and you need to label things, you need a damn Sharpie to do it. Otherwise, you will be lost. Also, there is a ignition relay. I failed to mention this one earlier. Apparently it's not on the list, so I'll have to add that. These do go south every now and then. They are easy enough to work around not having, but definitely easier just to swap it out in that case. Anyways, I'll put this all back together and we'll talk about the next kit. And now for the contents of the second case, which is labeled big parts. In here there is a ECM. It's been wrapped up in rag. This is an automatic one, later style part number. It'll work with the manual too. ECM failures are rare, but I have one in case I need it. It did fit, so why not put it in the case. In here there is a actual piece of higher density foam to help hold these parts because they're heavier. This was a kneeling pad that was cut up. The foam that they provide in these cases isn't actually stiff enough to hold anything that's this heavy. There is a alternator. This is a new unit from Remy. Not the best, but it'll work for getting you home. There is a starter. This is one of the Mitsubishi Electric genuine OEM ones from back in the late 80s, early 90s. They're a very good unit. So that's in there. And there is a fuel pump. Not a lot in this case. Pretty simple. So this is the third case. This is the tool kit. Just open this up real quick. At the top here, there's a cheap tart. super handy. Lay on it in the mud, snow, use it to keep the rain off you, keep something dry that needs to stay dry. They're like $3. Definitely throw one in. These cases are just cheap Plano tackle boxes. They're not going to last forever, but you can get a 4-pack of these for about $12. You know where to look, so just replace them when they get broken. In here, there's just your basic wrenches. There's some Torx bits. There's always Torx on Jeeps, even if you try and get rid of all of them. Utility knife. Got vice grips, which are super handy for if you, say, blow a brake line or something like that. You can just pinch it off with that, bleed your system out. At least you'll have brakes to get home, or most of your brakes. Hex keys or Allen keys, whatever you want to call them. Standard or metric. I carry one fairly large one specifically for doing Chevy brake calipers because there is on the rear of my Cherokee. You don't think there's a lot of those on a Cherokee normally, otherwise. Screwdrivers, picks, there's some punches in there, there's a big slotted screwdriver for prying things. Simple stuff. This one's got a multimeter, leads for it, crimping tool for electrical connectors. I like a proper digital multimeter. This one was $70. If it gets ruined in here, so be it. But they're much nicer than just a test light or an old analog multimeter. And analog multimeters don't stand up to vibration either, so you can't really take them with you and expect them to still work. Here we've got side cutters, needle nose, magnet, little mirror. Good for finding things, fishing things out. This compartment, I'm actually going to take it apart and show you what's in here. Obviously there's a crescent wrench. It's good for larger fasteners and generally rounding nuts off. Underneath it though, there's some Stanley, they sell these under their Fat Max line. I don't know what they actually call them. They're big adjustable wrench pliers. These are actually a rip-off of the Knipex Cobra pliers, which are much superior to these. I got these very cheap. Otherwise I wouldn't actually ever buy them. I would buy the Knipex Cobra pliers. These still work really good, but the Cobra pliers, they are absolutely amazing. They're one of those tools that, honestly, if you don't have them, go buy them. What I do have from Knipex here, though, is their plier wrenches. Another amazing tool. These are great, jaws open right up. Tons of leverage on them, so they'll actually grip things very tight. They're very robust. They're very well built. They use very high-end materials in these. I've used a lot of these, and I've done lots of terrible things with them, and I've never broken one, so I would recommend buying these. Also in here, just wrapped up in a little rag, is an axe file. Axe file is a pretty good thing to carry around because it is coarse on one side, fine on the other. Handles built into it. If you're going to have only one file, axe file does a lot of work for you. Cheap ball peen hammer. Doesn't look very good, but you know what? You're just using it for hitting things. Pipe wrench. Simple, easy. You know what? Put your high left handle on the end of it for more leverage. You can open them right up. Put them all sorts of things. They mangle nuts, they mangle anything they touch, but if you're just trying to get home, they work great. In here we've got sockets, extensions, ratchets. I bought gear wrench fine tooth ratchets for this. I quite like them. They're good bang for the buck in my opinion. I do not like coarse tooth ratchets. Some guys use them, they're fine with it. I'm not, I hate them. There's extensions in there, 1/2-inch drive breaker bar. Got your assortment of sockets. Most of the ones I buy are 12-point. They're just a little more versatile for use in the field, in my opinion. I don't personally have issues with them as far as rounding stuff off. I think that's more user error generally. There's drive adapters in there too, because those are a handy thing to have. Now for the last container, which is the spare fluids. This is a Rubbermaid action packer. You haven't had experience with these. They're pretty robust, but the handles on them do tend to come open. I've got a bungee cord on it to safety it for the time being. That's not the best thing for an actual off-road environment. I would highly recommend a ratchet strap. I just have that on there because it works good enough for just tooling around town and whatnot. Inside of here, it's really not earth-shattering stuff, but there is another little Plano case. This has got kind of the good little knickknacks. We've got some RTV, we've got some Thread sealant, we've got some red Loctite. Probably not using the red Loctite, but it's there. Gas tank repair kit. It's an epoxy, you need it together. It sticks to metal tanks, will not stick to plastic tanks, but you know what? A lot of the time you got a metal tank, that will help you out if it starts leaking. You can also actually use it on fuel lines. It doesn't say you can. Wait for it to cure fully before pressurizing the system. JB Quick, much more useful than the regular JB Weld. It takes too long to set. This stuff sets in a hurry. A little bit of Loctite super glue. Loctite stuff's pretty good. Then there's some mixing implements, tongue depressors, acid brush, Q-tips. You know, at least you can do a decent job of it when you put it on. It's a funnel. You're not getting anywhere without a funnel. But really, I mean, you can cut the top off of a container if you have to make one, but for $2, you might as well throw one in. Top off the gear oil. Doesn't fit if it's on there. Got it all taped up because of that. I am paranoid about fluids leaking in here because I've had lots of experience with spare kits for helicopters doing that, and it's terrible. Brake fluid, again, same thing. Tape the cap on it. You don't want it coming off. This stuff's super corrosive, gross, terrible stuff. Keep it from leaking. There's 2 quarts of engine oil. I don't care any more than that. Chances are, if you need more than 2 quarts of engine oil, something catastrophic's happened, and you're not driving the thing out anyways. Like if there's a rod hanging out the side of the thing, it doesn't matter how much engine oil you have, you're not getting home. But that said, there is 2 quarts of ATF in here. And ATF is very handy in that if you have an automatic transmission, you have to put ATF in it. Nothing else works. You will absolutely ruin the thing before you get anywhere if you put engine oil or gear oil in it. ATF, however, can be put in an engine. Engine like a 4-liter can handle a lot of ATF in it in the short term. You don't want to be doing that all the time. But for the sake of getting yourself home, honestly, you can run a fair amount of that in there and you will not appreciably hurt it. Same thing with, obviously, a transfer case, like a chain drive one, is meant to take ATF. Gear drive transfer cases, you can put ATF in them. And it won't likely hurt anything in the short term. It does not have the extreme pressure additive of gear oil, but it'll work out. Same thing with axle, stuff like that. If things go wrong, top it up with ATF. Manual transmission, throw ATF in there, don't even look back, it's fine. Like I said, quart of gear oil, just cheap stuff, got it taped up so it doesn't leak. 2 cans, brake clean. Fine to use brake clean for everything. Little WD-40, not the most useful stuff in the world, but bottle of it fits, so why not? A couple of jugs here, one's coolant, one's water. Premix would be a lot more convenient. I didn't have any, so this is what wound up in here. There's also hose, various types, fuel injection, tranny cooler, non-fuel injection, heater core, whatever. I've got a bunch of all of it in there. Enough that you can scab things together. It's all about just making something that'll work, right? Not doing things perfect. I'm going to keep mentioning that. It's all about just getting home, get yourself back to where you can either get a tow truck or get actual parts or get yourself home. In here there is also spill pads. Fair number of them. They're jammed in here to take up the slack, stop everything from thrashing around. But, you know, if you're adding fluids, it's because the fluids went somewhere. So if you spilled them, sop them up with the spill pads. Like, just do your part. That little act of cleaning up behind yourself is the sort of thing that keeps trails open and keeps 4x4 guys from getting a bad name, or keeps the Jeep guys from getting a bad name. Even if you're in a parking lot and you're working on your stuff, clean up after yourself. People notice. That's the thing. Like, all it takes is one picture posted to Facebook of you leaving a puddle somewhere, and the whole world's on fire about the 4x4 guys or Jeep guys or whatever. Also some rags in here. You always need rags if you're adding fluids. Anyways, I think that's it for this video. Hopefully you didn't find me too boring. Thanks for watching.